Okay, the equipment stuff. Boy, there was a lot of stuff we used to do in the old days. I remember once, very, very good golfer on the tour, one of the best we've ever had, who hit cuts. You guys have figured this out.
Yep.
And if there was a crosswind, and the crosswind was left to right with the cut, I noticed that every time that there was that wind in a crosswind left to right, he would take his driver and he'd rake it across his face. So
okay,
I go over, and he hits his bullet down the left side. Usually his cut would kind of creep to the right a little bit, but when he wiped his face, the driver just bolted and just went a little to the right. He took off all the spin. And so I walked over.
I know what he's doing. That's amazing.
So I went over and I go, listen, left to righter that's won a lot of majors. I said, what are you doing with that driver? He goes, what do you mean? I go, I notice you wipe it on your face when there's a left to right wind. He goes, oh, I had too much sunscreen on, so I had to get it off. I go, really? Okay, good. So the guys used to load it up all the time, whether it was chapstick that you would rub, Vaseline you'd
That's
rub
awesome.
on it, whatever way you could do it, you would do it. That was easy. Another thing we used to do, and I won't name the manufacturer or anything.
Before you get into that, Gary, for all of our listeners out there, if you put chapstick or some kind of petroleum jelly on the face of a driver, it will absolutely take the spin off the driver. Let's say in those days, well, let's just take a number. Let's say you're at 3,000 RPM, okay, in those days. You would wipe that off and it would take the spin off the ball, and you could get it to 2,500 in a second. So if you had wind, you could literally control your spin. So if any kind of wind, you just wipe that thing and go like that. I remember this. I was playing a money game. This is not on the tour. Money game on the 9th hole at this golf course that I played in Riverside. And I'm playing these guys for money. My Vaseline was a little bitty jar. It was about like that. And I put it in a pocket there. So I was on the tee first, and these guys are still putting out an 8. So I get it in, and I take a big goop of it out like that, and I hold it up where they can't see it, and I wipe it across face. Well, one guy 3-putted, another guy was 4-putting, so I had more time, so I wiped it again. So I get up on the tee, and I nailed it, and the ball went about 40 yards and went right in the ground. I put so much on it, it took all the spin off. That's the last time I did it, because ball went 80 yards. It looked like I topped it, but I didn't. Another thing we used to do, this was interesting. There was a golf club company that if you went into it and you go way back in the back, there was a door, big wooden door. And the knock was this. 2 knocks, stop, knock again. The door would knock.
Open. The door would like that, like you're going to some sort of medieval castle. And he'd go back and he'd shut the door. And this was the groove guy. The groove guy.
The groove guy.
I'm talking, this is in the 70s. The groove guy. Okay? Here's the story. So he'd walk in and he had all these wooden hammers, and he had this nest of lead. Remember the lead strips, Tim, that you put on the clubs we used to do? Well, he would put all these together when he'd get done with the guys' clubs and put them, and he made a nest that was like this, and it was a perfect inset of a sand wedge. And he'd stick it in there, and then he had this wooden thing that he put on the side to hold it in place. And then he goes, do you want them all knocked up? And I go, yeah. And so what he would do, he would take, and he had a chisel that matched the width of every groove. Some of them were short at the top and bigger at the bottom, whatever. And he'd take, and so the groove as it is, okay, he'd take it and he'd knock up the top of that groove.
Okay.
Wow, one hit. So that'd peel off. So literally when he got done, it was like trying to run a golf ball up a shake shingle roof. Got it?
Yeah.
There was resistance
100%.
every foot as it went up. So he hit the wedges like that of my wedge, and he says, "Okay, go hit some balls with it." So I hit some balls. I was there one day, and I went and played the Sammy Davis tournament in Connecticut. Okay,
how many golf balls did you go through?
Okay, so I get out there now. Weathersfield, where we played, the greens are old school, so they're tilted from the back to the front, and that was basically for the water to run off. That's how they did it in the old days. So you had to get the ball high above the hole because it would spin a little bit, right? Well, I get on the first hole and I hit this thing. And went zoom. It went back about. I didn't practice with it. It went back about 40 feet. So as the day wore on, it got worse and worse. I kept hitting harder and harder.
Yep.
So if the pin was in the front, I'd have to throw it to the back and it spin all the
way down. If the pin was in the back, you got no prayer.
So I'm walking up the 13th hole. And I hit another one. It spun 50 feet back. And I get this arm around me as I'm walking down. And I'm playing with Gene Littler. And Gene's got his arm around me. He goes, "Gary," he said, "I seen you've been to the Groove Man." And I go, "No, Mr. Littler, what are you talking about?" He goes, "I know. You've been to the Groove Man. Now listen to me closely. You need to go to the range and you need to hit balls for a week and dull those things up." He says, "You can't do it, right? Would you do this 2 days ago?" And I went, "Oh, yeah." And he goes, "Go hit balls." And I went, I'll never forget that lesson. But they were all doing that kind of stuff. In the old days.
That's amazing.
Yeah, these boys, I remember the same thing was at Cypress Point where they're all tilted, right?
Right.
And you'd spin them, especially that time of the year, wet, ball would spin. And Sam Snead told me, he says, Sam always talks with a list.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Gary," he says, "you make a practice swing and you go deep, take a big divot, and don't brush off the dirt from the grooves." I go, "What?"
Yep.
He goes, "Yeah." He says, "They fill them up, it won't spin." So
because out there you don't want it to spin as much.
You don't want it to spin because it'll come off the green. And I'm on the first hole and I drive it down there, and that green is tilted. It has to be a 10-degree angle. And I hit a flyer and it went 20 yards over the green. And that was it. I go, Sam Snead. So and I couldn't control it. So, but all these old guys had all sorts of tricks that they would do with their clubs and so forth to try to play the game and make some money. And there wasn't any money at that particular point. It was just like everybody got together, throw in $100 and you go play for that. It was one of those things.
And this was pre-equipment vans. So when you wanted an adjustment to your golf club, you went and found a tree. You went and found a tree root that was, their Mitchell machine. What's a Mitchell machine? Go find a tree root or something to bend a golf club on.
Yeah, you would go. The favorite deal was you'd find asphalt, or you wouldn't find asphalt. You'd find concrete. Okay, asphalt was too bumpy, and you'd put a towel down if I wanted to flatten my club, and you'd give it a violent swing, and then so your right arm is just going down right on that heel of that thing, and you extend your right arm as soon as you hit it to flatten.
Yep, 100%.
3 hits, right? And the hard thing was to get it upright. You'd have to find a curve.
Yeah, that was very tough.
You have to find a curve. You have to stand on the shaft on one, put the head over the end of the curve, and then whack it as hard as you could to get the thing to go a little more upright. And that's how we did it, because there was no vans out there. You might find a guy somewhere 102 miles from the golf course that had a place in his garage that he'd fix clubs, but he would always screw it up anyway. So you just did it yourself. And there was never any tools or anything. So we just kind of made do. It was kind of fun. Your clubs at the end,
right? We
didn't have any way to even look at the measurement of the loft.
No, you didn't know what they were.
Anything. So I might have had 5 3-irons in my club at one time because I'm messing with a 5-iron, 4-iron, 3-iron, and I didn't know until you went out and hit balls and went, well, that one goes farther than the other. I remember one time my 4-iron was going shorter than my 6-iron. So I just did the opposite. I just put my 6-iron as a 4-iron and my 4-iron as a 6-iron. The math.
Oh,
my
man.
God.
Yeah,
Are you kidding me?
yeah, the math got
Oh
tough.
my God.
Really tough. Yeah, and because all the shafts were different too, and the
Right.
shafts would pick up. Sometimes, you know, you get one that's lively, and I remember
Yep.
that with my 6-iron, it was lively, and it got up there and whee, and that's why I changed it. 6-iron was a 4-iron, and the 4-iron was a 6-iron. It's all
You
distance.
can't make
You
this
hit it.
stuff up. You can't
No,
make it up.
no.